Hello everyone. Hello everyone. I am Leela and I am from the Buddhi Academy. So today we'll continue with the market demand function. So for the previous video we have seen different demand schedule and individual demand schedule. Also we have learned the concept of demand function. So today we'll learn with regards to law of demand and also for the previous class we have seen concept of normal and the inferior goods. So today we'll continue with this part, that is from the demand function. So that is market demand function. Now market demand function, it is similar to individual demand function, okay. And market demand function, it represents, what does it represent? It represents the relation between the market demand of good and its various determinants. So now how we can represent the market demand function? We can represent it as this, okay. So here Px, it represents market price of good X, okay. So whatever P is the price, so price of good X. Then D is demand for good X. Then Y, that is Py, it represents the market price of other goods. Then Y, it represents the income of all the consumer, and T represents consumer taste and preferences. As we know that the taste and preferences of the consumer, it goes on changes. So and here N represents population size, or the number of consumers in the market. Then YD represents distribution of income. So here for the next session we'll be learning about the determinants of market demand. So which are the different determinants of market demand, or which are the factors of factors determining market demand? So first one is price of goods, then market price of other good, and in other goods there are substitute goods and complementary goods. Then third one is the income of the consumer, and fourth is consumers preferences and taste. And then population size, that is the number of consumers in the market, and distribution of income. So the first one is market price of good X. So here all the other things, it remains constant, and as the market price of good rises, the quantity demanded of the good falls. Thus, market price of good and its quantity demand share a negative relation. So this point we have to remember, that there is a negative relation between the market price and the quantity demanded. So here if we can also say that other thing remaining constant, as the market price of good falls, the quantity demanded of the good rises, okay, and both the vice versa. So thus market price of good and quantity demanded, it shares a negative relation. Then second one is market price of other goods. Now quantity demanded of a good also depends on the market price of other goods, that is related goods, or any two goods are considered to be related to each other. So when the demand for one good changes in response to the change in the market price of the other good, the related goods can be classified into following categories. The first one is substitute goods, and the next is complementary goods. Substitute goods are those goods which can be substituted for each other. Like here, in case of substitute goods, if the price of one good increases, like tea and coffee, we can um, take the example of. If the price of tea increases, then we can shift to coffee, or if the price of coffee increases, we can shift to tea. So these are the substitute goods. So then the consumer shift his demand to the other good, that is rise in price of one good result in rise in demand of the other goods, and vice versa. So this is what market price of other good is. Then complementary goods. So in case of complementary goods, if the price of one good increases, then a consumer reduces his demand for the complementary goods as well. That is, rise in price of one good will result in fall in demand of the other good, and vice versa. Like rise in price of petrol will fall in demand for car. Then third one is income of the consumer. So change in income of the consumer, it also affects the market demand for goods. The effect of change in income on the market demand, it depends on the type of good. So the market demand for normal goods, it shares a positive relation with consumers' income. So here we have seen with regards to normal goods and the inferior goods. Normal goods is always shares a positive relation with consumers' income. As income increases, the demand for normal goods also increases. Okay. Then we have also seen inferior goods as it shares a negative relation with consumer income. So as the income increases, the demand for inferior goods falls and vice versa. So the same thing is given over here. The market demand for inferior goods shares a negative relation with consumer income. Then given goods also we have seen. Given goods, these are those goods which are highly inferior, and it shares a negative relationship with the consumer's income. So the market demand for given goods also shares a negative relationship with the income. Then the fourth point is consumer taste and preferences. So consumer taste and preferences highly influence the demand for goods. Other thing being equal, if all the consumer prefer a commodity over other, then the market demand for that commodity increases and vice versa. So this is what is with regards to the consumer taste and preferences, like the consumer fashion, the habits, everything is goes on changing day by day. The next is population size or the number of consumers in the market. The market demand for commodity is also affected by the population size. Okay. Other things being equal, an increase in the population size, an increase in population size increases the market demand of a commodity, and decrease in the population decreases the market demand of a particular commodity. So this is because with the change in population, number of consumers in the market changes. Okay, and that's why the market demand is going to change, right? Then beside the size of population, composition of population also influences the market demand. So example, if the population consists of more of young and teenage consumer, then the demand for goods which are meant for youngsters, it is going to increase. Okay, so this is what with regards to the population size and number of consumers in the market. The next thing is with regards to distribution of income. If distribution of income in a society is fair and equal, then demand for commodity is more compared to a situation with unequal distribution of income here. So this is what there are different factors which affect the determinants of demand. The first one is market price, then market price of other goods, that is substitute and the complementary goods, income of the consumer and the consumer taste and preferences, then population size and number of consumers in the market, and distribution of income. And also the market demand function, and it represents which is similar to the individual demand function, and it represents the relation between the market demand of good and its various determinants. Then the next part is with regards to demand curve. So demand curve is nothing but it is a graphical representation of demand function. Okay, that is the graphical representation of the relationship between the demand for a good and its price for a given income. Price of related goods, then the taste and preferences. So the relationship between the demand for a good and its price is negative. So this implies that, so here if we can see, this is the demand curve. Quantity is shown on x-axis and the prices is shown on y-axis. Okay, so this implies that demand will fall with the rise in price. Okay, so as the price rises, demand is going to fall. Okay, this we have seen with regards to demand. In demand schedule we have seen with the help of the tabular representation. um, as the here we have seen, as the price increases, demand is going to fall, and when the price decreases, the demand increases. Okay, so here we are seeing this with the help of demand curve. This is that demand curve. So this implies that demand will fall with the rise in price, and vice versa. A demand curve is drawn with the assumption of constant income. So here a same income we have taken, given taste and preference and constant price of the related goods. So in other words, a demand curve helps us to study the one-to-one relation between price of good and its demand, assuming other factors to be constant. So the function form of demand curve is represented as this. Dx is equal to a functional relation between the price, then the income, taste and preferences. Then market demand curve. A market demand curve shows the aggregate quantity of demanded of a commodity that all the consumers in the market are willing to purchase at different possible prices. And here market demand curve we have for market demand schedule we have taken different consumers choices, like consumer 1, consumer 2, if you can see here, like this we have taken. So based on the market demand schedule, here we have drawn market demand curve. So a market demand curve shows the aggregate quantity of a demand of a commodity that all the consumers in the market are willing to purchase at different possible prices. So graphically, a market demand curve is derived by horizontal summing up of all the individual demand curve. So, so first in the diagram 1, it can be seen that at price 10 quantity demanded by consumer is 1. Consumer 1 is 5 units, and that of the consumer 2, if you can see consumer 2 at the same price, it is 7 units. Therefore the market demand at price rupees 10 is 12, and that is 5 unit plus 7 units. So similarly, horizontal summing up different quantity demanded by both the consumer and different prices, we obtain the market demand. Okay. So market demand curve shows the aggregate demand of a commodity that all the consumers in the market are willing to purchase at different possible prices. So this is with regards to market demand curve, and earlier we have seen the market demand schedule, that is in this diagram, wherein we have taken the quantity demanded by consumer 1 and quantity demanded by consumer 2. Then we'll move to the law of demand. So as we know, demand for a commodity is a function of various factors. Price is the most important of all the factors that affect demand. So law of demand focuses on the basic relation between price of a good and quantity demanded of the good. Now according to this law of demand, consumers' demand shares an inverse relation with the price of a good and vice versa. So, and all the other things being constant. So in other words, if the income, price of related goods and a consumer taste and preferences remain unchanged, then the demand of a good moves opposite to the movement in the price of those goods. So we'll learn this with the help of the schedule and a diagram. So here a schedule is given in which a price and quantity demanded is shown. So price of a commodity X and quantity demanded of X. So prices are shown over here as 5, 10, 15 and 20. Quantity demanded in units they have shown 100 units, 75, 50 and 25. So the schedule shows that as price of the commodity X increases from 10 to 15, the quantity demanded X falls from 75 to 50 units. Thus, there is a negative relation between a demand and price. So, if we can see here, when the price is 5, so when the price is 5, so it means when the price is less, that time the quantity demanded is more. So, demand is more for the particular commodity. Demand is more. Then when the price increases, when it goes from 5 to 10, the demand, it is going to it is decreasing over here. Okay, demand is slightly, it is less. Okay, then when if we see this, if we see from 10 the price has gone to 15 and then it has gone to 20. So if we can see that this trend, the prices are increasing, increase in price, increase in price. So when there is an increase in price, quantity demanded is falling over here. So there is a decrease in demand. So what does it means? That it shows a negative relation between demand and price. So we can see there is a negative relation between demand and price. Then here this is with regards to schedule, and then we'll draw the demand curve. So on the x-axis they have taken quantity, and on the y-axis they have plotted a price. So we present the price of the good joining the different combination of price and quantity demanded points. So here they got DD as a demand curve. Okay, this curve is the demand curve which shows the inverse relation between price and quantity demanded. Then what are the reasons for a downward slope of demand curve? So if we can see here, the demand curve is sloping, right? It's sloping downwards. So the reasons behind downward sloping of demand curve is this: the demand curve is downward sloping from left to right. In other words, the slope of demand curve is negative. The following are the reasons responsible for the downward slope of the demand curve. The first one is law of diminishing marginal utility. So in this law, as we have learned, that as more and more units of a commodity you consume, that time your the satisfaction level, it goes down. Yes. So according to this law, marginal utility means the satisfaction derived from every additional unit of a good consumed tends to decline at the same price. Consequently, for each additional unit of the good, the consumer is willing to pay a lesser price over here. Thus, the consumer will increase his demand only when the price falls. So, if you can see here, when the price is 5, demand for a commodity is increasing. Then the next is several uses of good. So a commodity can be used for a different purpose, like wheat flour can be used for making biscuits, breads. So if the price of a commodity increases, then it will be used only for the important purpose. Thereby, the demand for the good will reduce. So, with the fall in the price, the good will be put to various uses and consequently the demand is going to rise. Then the third one is number of consumers. So with the fall in the price of good, the consumers demanding the good will increase and vice versa. This is because with the fall in the price, some new consumers enter the market who can now afford the good. Then substitution effect. It implies that a rise in price of good makes its substitute goods relatively cheaper. This leads to an increase in demand for the substitute goods and decrease in demand for the good itself at higher prices. For example, a rise in price of coffee will make tea relatively cheaper. Thus, the consumer will shift their demand towards tea and thereby demand for a coffee will reduce over here. So these are some of the different reasons for a downward slope of demand curve. The next reason is income effect. It implies that in the price of good, uh, it implies that a rise in the price of good leads to the fall in the purchasing power of money. an income of the consumer and consequently leads to decrease in demand for good. This is because lesser of good can be purchased with the same amount of money. So income effect also puts a demand curve to slope downwards. So this is with regards to the law of demand, wherein we learned the with regards to schedule, and then we also saw the demand curve and which are the different reasons for downward slope of demand curve. Then these are some of the exceptions to the law of demand. Exceptions to the law of demand. Demand for all goods and services, it do not necessarily follow the law of demand. That is, there are some goods whose demand increases with a rise in their price and falls with a fall in their price. So in such cases, demand curve will slope upward from left to right. So the following are some of the exceptions to the law of demand. The first one is articles of distinction. So some of the articles such as diamonds, then jewelry are accorded as a high prestige. These are prestigious things and status valued by the society as these are very costly. So such articles enjoy a high demand because of their high price. So this comes under articles of distinction. So here we have to remember diamond and jewelry. Then, demand for such article increases with increase in their price. On the other hand, with a fall in the price, these articles is going to lose their prestige value and their demand is going to fall. So this is because if the price falls, they will no longer be considered as an article of distinction and their demand is also going to fall. So this is known as Veblen effect. Okay. Then the next thing is given goods. Given goods are shares a negative relation with the and these are highly inferior with consumers' income and a positive relation with their price. These goods are highly inferior goods. With a fall in price of the given goods, their demand is going to fall over here. The next is future expectations. A consumer expectations regarding future price also influence the demand. For example, an exceptions of rise in price in the future will result in rise in the quantity demanded at present and vice versa. Then emergency situations. So law of demand does not hold true in case of emergency situation such as war, curfew, natural calamities, etc. So in such situations, consumer purchase the commodities even at a higher price. Then demonstration effect. Sometimes a group of consumers in an attempt to follow the consumption behavior of the higher income groups tend to purchase the goods consumed by the upper class even if the price is higher. So this is called as demonstration effect. So this is with regards to exceptions to the law of demand, wherein we saw articles of distinction, given goods, future expectation, emergency situations and demonstration effect. For the next class, we'll see linear demand curve and movements among demand curve, shift in demand, and then expansion and contraction of demand. Okay. Thank you for watching my video.